When a man begins to build character, the first thing God does is that God empowers him. That's the first advantage of godly living, holy living. That's the first advantage of character. In Psalm 24 verse 3, it says, who shall stand upon the mountains of the Lord? Who shall ascend his holy hills? That means, who will God give the opportunity to wield the scepter of authority? Who will God give visibility over a generation? Who will God give control of a people? Who will God allow authority to impact a generation? And the Bible began to tell us. He said, him that is of a clean hands, him that is of a pure heart, that have not lifted up his soul in vanity. That means, if your hands are not clean, if your heart is not pure, if your heart is not in brokenness and humility, he said God will be the one resisting you. That is why you may have all the creativity, but nobody will know you. That is why you have all the words, nobody will know you. That is why you have all the invention, nobody will take advantage of it. Because he said, if it's God, for God to exhort you over a generation, for God to give you authority over a generation, what God looks at is not what you can do, it's who you are. Is your hand clean? Is your heart pure? Is your soul lifted up in vanity? If all of these credentials are there, then God will exhort you over his hills. And remember what happens to a man that God have ascended or caused to ascend over his hills. What did the Bible say? In Micah chapter 4 verse 1, it said, all the nations will say, let us go to the house of the Lord. Let us go to his holy hills. He said, for out of Zion proceeds the law. That means where direction comes for the nations is on the mountains of God. And so the man who is on the mountain of God gives direction to the nations. He influences the nation. He inspires the nation. He tells the nations what to do. But who is the man that God will give the opportunity to stand on his holy mountains? Is the man that is of a clean hands. Is a man that is of a pure heart. So if you want to have authority to influence a generation, you want to have authority to influence a nation, what you should focus on is not God lift me. It's actually God purify me. Because if you are purified, there is one place God will keep you. It's upon the holy mountains of God. And if you're on the mountains of God, the nations of necessity will seek you, because you will be the one to give them direction. The Bible said God exalts the humble, but he said he resists the proud. He resists the proud. He giveth grace to the humble. What does grace do? Grace comes to cause you to stand out. It can come in form of wisdom. It can come in form of creativity. It can come in form of empowerment. That's what it means to stand on the mountain of God. There are many people today who are wondering why they have such a golden voice, yet nobody hears them. Because they have not been exalted. There are many people today that have 1,001 ideas that would have changed their world, but everywhere they submit their proposal, it is trashed. And they are wondering, why would these doors not open? Why would these opportunities not be given? Because God will not exhort you. God will only exhort you when your motives are pure. God will only exhort you when your hands are pure. So quit the wrong prayers. You have been praying for 10 years. Open doors for me. You have been praying for 10 years. Exhort me. And the Bible is telling you, the man that will stand upon his holy hills is a man with a pure hands. Is a man with a clean heart. So what you should start praying now is, Lord, purify me. Lord, purge me. Did you not read in 1 Timothy chapter 2 from verse 18? It said, if a man purges himself, he said that man is meet and qualified for the master's use. That means when your life is full of garbages, the focus of God is not your exhortation. The focus of God is actually your purification. Because if God exhorts you in error, you are finished. Did you not read about Adam? God created Adam to rule over the whole earth. In fact, when God blessed Adam, he said, have dominion over the birds of the air, the fish of the water, and everything that creepeth upon the face of the earth. The moment Adam defied himself, God drove him out of the garden and sent him into obscurity. Why would God send a man designed to rule over the earth into obscurity? Because if that man is exalted in error, he will be eternally condemned. There are most of us today that the level of money we should handle, God himself is the one stopping us from handling it. Because if we handle that money today, it will fester our corrupt nature, and a point will come we will never be redeemed again. Most of us, the ideas we have today, the president of nations are supposed to come for it, but God will insist it doesn't happen, because if that level of influence comes, we will never be recovered again. We will be so lost that even if the whole power in heaven were to be channeled in our direction, we will be beyond recovery. So what God will do is that he will keep those doors waiting for the day that you are purified. And the day you are purified, like the twinkling of an eye, things just changes, and you are wondering, is it so easy for me to have a breakthrough? Yes, it's that easy, but it is difficult for you to be transformed. That's why God faced the difficult part first. The moment your transformation is ensured, your change comes to you by free course. Believers focus on the wrong things. You have not been able to deliver yourself from the influence of clubbing, and you are telling God to empower you so that you will build a club in your own house. You have not yet been delivered from the influence of womanizing. You are telling God to breed upon this your idea to become a global vision, so that you start camping Brazilian ladies, Turkish ladies, Ethiopian ladies. You will travel for 1 year, they will not see you. The next time you return, your first son will be in Congo, your second son will be in Italy, your third son will be in Ethiopia. And at the end of the day, you empower all of them, and they bring chaos into the world. God has seen the end. His name is Alpha Omega, and because he has seen the end, he wants to work on you first before he empowers you. Because the man that will stand upon the holy mountains of God is the man that is of a pure heart. You know, people see the men God uses in politics, in ministry, in commerce, and they are wishing they should be the one. Go and find out how God dealt with those men. That's why now that they have been exalted, those things mean nothing to them. You are seeing the car they are driving. You are seeing the suits they are wearing. That's what's motivating you. Those things mean nothing to them. In fact, those things are camouflage. They need to wear them because of where they are operating. You see a man carry escorts. It's not for luxury. The level where he is now, there are too many people trying to destroy him. So he needs some form of security around him. But in your loftiness of mind, you'll see the military escort as prestige. And then you are seeing yourself, you will go nowhere. When you meet that man, what troubles him night and day is how the lives of people will be changed. When you see him come up with an invention, it's not because he's looking for money. He's thinking of better ways of improving the lives of people. And the more he thinks on these things, the more ideas come to him. But somebody else is looking for the next innovation that will make him the youngest millionaire. Vanity upon vanity. Vanity upon vanity. That's why we go nowhere. When your motives are purified, God begins to empower you. Number two, when your motives are purified, God begins to give you creative ideas. Most of the inventors today, they were not thinking invention. They were actually thinking of improving the lives of humanity. So somebody see people trekking, riding on horses for 2 months to get to a location, and is wondering, how can human beings get to their destination faster? How can human beings be saved from the peril of the crisis of having to travel long distances, going through deserts? And as he's there thinking, he looks at a bird, and he said, birds fly. Is it possible for metals to fly? And on the strength of that, ideas began to come. What he's trying to deal with is the problem of transportation, not just to be called another inventor. And as those things burden him, it triggers into creativity. But you will never think like that until you are purified. Because if you are not purified, you will keep thinking self. And the more you think self, the smaller you become. So creativity is one of the byproducts of those who are purified. Because when they are purified, they quit thinking themselves, they start thinking others. And the moment they start thinking others, things begin to open up for them. Let me give you an instance of certain men in scripture, and then you see the level of power and creativity they walked in. The first man is Daniel. In Daniel chapter 6 verse 5, the Bible said, in Babylon, which is a nation of corruption, it said they could not find an occasion against Daniel. This is a man living in the belly of corruption. And he was not just living in one corner. He was a prime minister. He was an active politician. But they said they could not find an occasion against Daniel except in his consecration to his God. What level of purity is that? In fact, in Daniel chapter 1 verse 8, the Bible said Daniel proposed in his heart that he will not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat. So it was not something happening by coincidence. It was a deliberate stand taken by Daniel. I am in Babylon, but I will not be corrupt by Babylon. And 2 verses after, you will hear that Daniel and his friends were 10 times better than their peers. They entered an overwhelming level of mental power that they were 10 times. And their peers are not people reading books. These were astrologers. These were witches. People that had a spiritual advantage because of purity. The Bible said Daniel and his friends became 10 times better than them. That means any thought these men have, Daniel was already 10 times ahead. Any idea they have, Daniel is 10 times better. What kind of mental power is that? It was born out of a proposition that they will not defy themselves. The reason our generation is going backward is because corruption and decadence is taking the center seat in our hearts. Have you not noticed? Go to the universities today, you hardly find people having breakthrough in different aspects of science, in different aspects of education. Why? Because our campuses today is being replaced by fornication and immorality. So the kind of mental power people had in those days is no longer there. Have you found any student who clubs, fornicates, come out with an A? You can't do it. It eats your soul. Paul said, flee youthful lust that wages war against your soul. It kills your mind. But when you begin to consciously live a pure life, your mind starts being empowered. Daniel is a graphic example in scripture. And he was not just creative. This guy ruled Babylon, and Bible history will let us know that he was relevant to the government of Babylon for 65 years. He saw 4 different kings rise and fall. What kind of authority is that? And it's not like the Bible told us that this guy was specially gifted. We were only told that he refused to defile himself. We were only told that he committed himself to God in prayer. And suddenly, the king could do nothing without Daniel. In fact, a point came, the Bible said the king thought to himself to make him president over all the realms. If you begin to give attention to purifying yourself and refusing yourself to be defied, you will be shocked the level of inventive power that will come to you, because a lot is tied to your purity. Praise the Lord. It's beyond just coming to church and receiving impartation and falling down. If you keep your vessel, you become a junction of inspiration. God will load you with inspiration. Angels will load you with inspiration. You will see creativity in everything. And nothing empowers a man like wisdom. Solomon was wise and he was so powerful at the same time, because with wisdom comes power and influence. David had to fight 44 battles. Solomon never fought one. His wisdom provided peace and security for all his bounds. In fact, the opposing kingdoms came to him with gifts just to marvel at his nation and at his kingdom. There is a level of wisdom that our generation cannot tap into because we are too corrupt. And there's a level of influence we will not have except as that wisdom comes to us. Look at our world today. They talk about energy. They are godless people. They talk about computer creativity. They are godless people. But it was not so in the beginning. At first, all the inventors, all the wise men came from the church. What has happened to the church? Because we have taken purity to the backstage. And the more the church grows in corruption, the less their wisdom grows. The owner of Microsoft is not a Christian. Enter the crypto world today, the leaders are not Christian. They are talking about transportation, going to the moon. It's people like Elon Musk that are powering it. The direction the world is going, it looks as if the church is oblivion to it. The world finance is turning from physical cash to cashless policy to electronic money. And the people heralding it, they are not from the church. And at the end of the day, we fight it. After 10 years, we come back to use it. The reason is because our creative power is not just tied to reading. Our creative power is tied to our purity. Because every time the church emphasizes purity, there is a wisdom investment that is given to the church. Daniel was 10 times better than his colleagues because of purity. Number 2, you look at Joseph. In Genesis 39 verse 9, he said, how can I do this wicked thing and sin against God? How can I do this wicked thing and sin against God? What? You are about to be exalted in a house. You were sold into a country as a slave. The only opportunity you have, you are turning it down because of your purity. Are you crazy? But the young man would rather remain a slave than to defile himself or to do evil against his master. And as if God was unfaithful, they bundled him, accused him, labeled him a rapist for 14 years, threw him into prison. A slave, as if that status was not enough, he was now labeled a rapist, attempting to rape his master's wife. He carried that stigma for 14 years. He was thrown into the prison. Nobody cared about him, but he would rather keep his purity. Even if he lost everything, he will not lose his purity. And something happened in Psalm 105 from verse 17. The Bible said, until the time that his word came, the word of the Lord tried him. He said the king sent for to lose him, even the ruler of the people. He made him lord of his house and ruler of his substance. He gave him authority to bind his princes at his pleasure and to teach his senators wisdom. But what conferred upon him that power? When the king sent for him, I had a dream. What does your dream mean? He interpreted the dream by the instrumentality of a gift that God gave him. But the gift was not what exalted him. It was wisdom that exalted him. After he interpreted the gift, he said, let the king look for a wise man that will be able to look over the affairs of Egypt. And immediately the king said, who in this land is wiser than you? And he put him in charge of Egypt. Where did that wisdom come from? Why will I do this wicked thing against God, against my master, and sin against God? He bore that reproach for 14 years. But what came out of that reproach was to become the ruler over Egypt. A day came, he bought all the land of Egypt except the land of the priest. A day came, he bought the whole Egyptian, and he literally became the owner of Egypt. That level of power did not come because he read the book of the astrologers. That level of power came because he refused to defile himself. You don't know what you have lost by just allowing that foolish young boy to come and take away your virginity. You don't know what you have lost by allowing yourself on a weekly basis to go to the bed of immorality, to continue in that lying, to continue in that exaggeration. You don't know what you have lost. There are many pastors on the altar. They lie about testimonies that never happen. They exaggerate over things that never happen. They think by exaggerating, the people will think of them as big. Honor does not come from your exaggeration. He said promotion does not come from the south, nor the east, nor the west. He said promotion cometh from the Lord. When you stay pure and keep yourself humble under God, when God decides to shift you, even your enemies will be compelled to serve you. The wealth of purity have not been revealed to the church. A young boy becoming a ruler in a nation he was sent to as a slave. What human connection can turn a slave to the second in command? Pharaoh himself said, you are answerable to no one except me and the throne. Even the Potiphar that bought him became his steward. What human connection can confer that? Somebody will live here today and pay the price to purify his or herself. You may not know what you've lost. There are many ideas in your spirit that will never be crystallized because your impurity is fighting your creativity. And as it fights your wisdom, fights your creativity, it's fighting your influence. People are not exhausted. Do you think God helps us? Do you think God helps us just because we preach good messages? What are we preaching that have not been preached? What are we preaching? Go online and find out the stuff that is on the internet. The teachers that have walked through this world and their messages have been preserved. Go on the internet, you will be shocked. Sit down and listen to Zach Punem. Listen to Derek Prince. Sit down and listen to David Posse. Go and sit down and listen to some of these guys on the internet, Madame Guyon. Go and hear what they have preached. Go and listen to Robert Law, and you will find out that our generation have not even started reading the Bible. Go and listen to Watchman Nee, and then you will know you didn't come for a meeting because of message.